Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talking About Survivor. I am Christiana Ellis,
And I am Mike Mateen.
and tonight we're going to be talking about the May 1st episode of Survivor Edge of Extinction. And once again, somehow, because the way CBS tracks episode numbers in their app, what I had been calling episode 12 is what they call 11 on their little
Yep.
thing. Because I guess the 2 hour episode that was actually 2 hour long episodes just played back to back, they're calling one episode. So I don't even know how they track it. You know what I think it is, and this
It's
is
for the ratings. So they track the
yeah.
ratings of those two as one rating share, and so that's why they call it one episode.
Well, that makes sense. What I was actually going to say is not tied to that necessarily, but the logic applies, which is to say that if on the app, if you're going to come pull it up and watch it on demand, if they intend that to be one thing, it's less confusing for them to say it's one episode. So instead of having to have the title be longer to say that it's episode 6 and 7 or something.
Mm.
But in any event, we're very happy tonight to be able to have just one episode to discuss tonight. Our schedule this season has been very disrupted, so we have lots of an episode for 5, 6, and 7, an episode for 8 and 9, and then an episode for 10 and 11, and now what would be 12 but is actually 11 if you're paying attention to CBS. But we all know which one it is, so let's talk about it.
Yeah. And I did look up. I know we had kind of talked.
Mm-hmm.
There are only 2 episodes left
after this one.
Right. So
Okay.
There is a May 8th and a May 15th finale.
Okay. So that is still the normal. So the way that the numbering had always worked is it would be 13 episodes and then the finale. But if they count the 2 hour one as 2 instead of 1, then that's 13 and a finale. But now it's going to be 12 and a finale because they are counting it as 2.
Right.
This is not the interesting part of it.
Now we listen to this episode 13. But yes, we have. What is interesting is that there are only 2 episodes left. So we are fully into Endgame at this point.
For sure. Yeah, and it's really evident by how things are playing out. We have people full into what is their Endgame mode. That if they're going to make a move, it's time to do it. Who's going to be who they bring to the end. Everyone has got that mindset, or should. But and we continue to see players that are threats being taken out. At this point, there's no one who's an easy vote because nobody cares anymore, because people are either a threat or they are someone you take to the end because you think you can beat them.
Yep. And Rick is clearly a threat, and he only established himself as more so of one now.
Yeah.
But he didn't really have a choice.
Right. Yeah, it was kind of, the writing was on the wall. He didn't have a choice. It was just a matter of, okay, well, how long can you survive under this, this gauntlet? And good for him. He made it another couple of days. We'll see how he can, if he can continue to pull it off.
Yes, and I think, I don't think he did this to play to the jury, but I think it will play really well with the jury, with him kind of snapping at Ron and Julie and saying, you guys were just trying to embarrass me.
Yeah.
I think that played well for the jury. Call them out. Because that's literally what they did.
Yeah. It's interesting. I had some, complex feelings about it. Not in any of the sense that I felt like I liked and didn't like it, but more just a matter of what's the smart play? And I think there's some complexity in what happened there that I think we'll want to talk about, just because he followed that up by giving a slightly clenched teeth version of no actual hard feelings.
Yeah.
So it's like, But I think it's because Rick is a smart player, and it's the sort of thing where it's kind of like, hey man, I understand that what you did wasn't personal. Neither is this. Booyah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I thought that was interesting, and I think we'll want to talk more about that. But let's go ahead and go back to the beginning. Um,
Yeah.
we have everyone returning to camp, and this was just after War Dog getting voted out, and Devons is kind of pissed because this is not the first time that he's been left out of something here where we talked last time about the idea, like I suspected that that he maybe, well, I don't know, never mind, I can't remember what I said last time, but the point is he's very irritated because this is not the first time that Ron and Julie have told him that it was going to be one thing, and that's not what it was.
Right.
And so Ron is kind of trying to still do what he can about damage control, but Devons is basically like, hey man, look, you keep lying to me at a certain point. I'm going to just stop believing you. And that's where as we saw in the preview, Ron gives Devons the definitely expired little menu thing, which was an interesting move. And I think it was the problem was that it was too much, right? Like,
Right.
if it was really an idol that could be used, it makes no sense that Ron would give it to him.
Right.
And so Devons is like, I don't really understand this.
Yeah.
Because, he had no way to know that it was expired except just that this is fishy. Why would he continue to not trust me only to give me an idol?
Right. And so what I think was funny here is, obviously there's complex motivations behind like why he went searching for an idol,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like this kind of invigorated him to want to find his own true idol.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, not that he wouldn't have been looking anyway, but I think this gave him an extra injection of like, oh, because he started thinking about this is, this is weird that he would do this, so something must be up.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of like the idea of having an idol, so I'm gonna go find another one.
Yeah.
Like kind of what happened. So
well, right, yeah. Like even if it was already going to be the plan, it did seem to invigorate him, and
right.
this feeling of he knows everyone thinks he's a threat, and it's just a matter of, well, he's lied to me a couple of times. He's stringing me along, but then he just out of nowhere, unasked for, gives me an idol. Like, I would love for that to be true, but that seems fishy. Those of you watching the video are getting treated to one half of a tug of war here.
Yeah. Sorry, I left him alone all day, and my wife usually is home, and she's not, so he's been by himself. So when he trotted over here with his rope, I decided I would in the background just tug with him a little bit.
Yep. This is a dog for anyone who's unclear on that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's like a child or something. Yeah, it's my dog. Yeah.
But in any event, though, Devons is confused, but thinking like, could this be real? That would be exciting. I don't have any way to know that it's not, but something's weird.
Yeah. So I want some backup.
Yeah. Yeah. But first, we have the Loved Ones Challenge, which is always great. And not only is it great to see, to get this additional perspective on all of the players, it's always nice to see someone who knows the player from outside, and it just gives us this new view on all of the players. But it's especially great when the Loved Ones get to participate in the challenge. I feel like they always should.
Yeah, I really like it when that happens. It makes it
Hmm.
so much more fun
Yeah.
um, when they get to be a part of it. So
I suppose it's possible that there might be some times where it might be perceived as unfair if someone's loved one that they would want to have come out is would maybe not be up to it physically or something like that. Um,
yeah,
I don't know how they decide, but I definitely like it when they do have someone.
yeah,
Um,
and I like it. I mean, ones like this, where they're tossing buckets
mhm.
or when they're a caller, those
Right.
that's easy too. Like that's where you can really, there's always a way to involve them somehow. So
Yeah.
I prefer that they do that, and even if they have to make that part of the disclaimer on how you choose your loved ones is like, hey, there's a chance they will participate in an activity. Like, just
Hmm.
make sure that you select people who can do that.
Yep. Yep.
Or a preference would be that you select people who can do that.
Right. Right. So definitely great. So we meet Devin's wife first. Um, Someone calls her gorgeous. I couldn't figure out who it
Yeah,
was that said that, but they talk about the sort of the emotional thing of the son that's too young to really kind of understand. Like it might also be the sort of thing where like the son maybe theoretically could be explained to them, but you couldn't count on them not blabbing that.
right.
So you have to just say like he's on a vacation, and but a 4-year-old is going to probably ask almost every day like when's he coming home, where is he. That's and so
Right.
I can imagine that being hard, but Devon's is like it is hard, but it's worth it. you know
Yeah.
uh, um then Julie's husband comes out and they're both crying. She asks if he's okay, which is kind of fun. uh,
Yeah.
Lauren's dad comes out. They kind of make a thing of how she seems to whisper something to him, but it was kind of, I think, one of those rare moments where like probes, but it's not really that interesting. It's really just,
Yeah.
it's just kind of like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm doing all right. She just it wasn't a secret or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but they talked about how it's a simultaneous combination of I want to tell you that I'm okay, but also have you reassure me that I'm okay. Um, then we had Ron's husband, and kind of a weird comment from Probst of like, "Let's see who married you."
Yeah.
Like it was like, what? That's a slightly weird thing to say, but I mean, I don't think we need to read too much into it, but it was weird.
Yeah, I think he just meant it as a joke. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a joke that people like a self-deprecating joke that people make a lot. It was just
Yeah.
weird. It was just weird because he said it to Ron, but not to
Well, it's
Rick or
yeah.
to Julie.
It's the kind of joke that could work as a self-deprecating joke, but feels mean when someone else says it.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, anyway, Probst is
You also
usually
feel
so
like
great. It's like one of
there's got
the
to have been some banter between Ron and Probst that maybe
yeah,
we aren't seeing,
could
where
be.
he's been kind of difficult to Probst and like kind of
Hmm.
owned that, and so
Yeah.
Probst felt comfortable kind of making that joke.
Hmm.
That's what I figured, but
Yeah. It actually just now hit me that wasn't was it Ron's thing? The whole idea of let's stay, comma strong until the family one challenge, the love one
yes,
challenge.
yes.
Yeah. So the fact that he made it and then promptly got voted out is kind of
Yeah,
fun.
well, there's kind of reverse there. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
um,
that's funny.
anyway, they are a cute couple together, and there's fun discussion of him. How he has facial hair, which I guess is not a usual thing, and he introduces. It's like these are all my new friends.
Yeah,
That was fun. He was actually very charming in that whole bit. He just lit up with his husband there.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he seems like a genuinely good guy. He's
Oh
just
yeah.
he's playing so hard.
Oh
You
yeah.
know.
No, see, I like Ron. I think he's made some uh, challenging moves. Like he's playing a hard game where he's absolutely out there doing things which can be a double-edged sword, right? Like as opposed to a passive game. And so I like him, but what I'm just like when he was there, he really was sort of lit up and animated in a way that he was much more sort of lower key most of the rest of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's good. They were a cute couple. And then we had Victoria's dad, and she says, "Do I look crazy?" And he says, "You look like a freckle." And then she says, "You smell good." And he says, "It's bug spray."
Yes. That whole exchange was hilarious.
Yes. Good stuff. Aurora's brother came out, and I don't know that it necessarily says anything negative, but I didn't have any notes about that exchange. I
didn't either.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of ordinary, but just like nothing really stood out. But Gavin's interaction stood out because we learn that they moved up a previously scheduled wedding date so that he could be married 2 days before leaving for Survivor.
Yes.
And then everyone is astonished when he starts to cry because I guess he's like been one of the people who hasn't cried at all so far. And so it's like, aw.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was very sweet too.
Yeah, there was.
So we got the loved ones participating in the challenges, and it was a great one that didn't require them to be too active. Like it really works the main contestants hard, because the bucket throwing is not a big deal, but running up and down the beach over and over again, that's the one where you could see they were all exhausted.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the loved ones get to have water thrown on them, which is, that's fun. Like, that's the sort of thing, you at a beach resort, right? You play a game where it's hot outside and you get splashed with some cool water, Although probably the water was not that cool in that setting. It was probably kind of warm and stale in the bucket, plus it's salt water. So, anyway, but it's fine. I want to, yeah, I think part of the challenge design here, though, and I just want to see how you feel about this, something about like that post, like that fence that they had to stand behind, and the distance of it seems like it might have actually been designed to prevent what would otherwise be the optimal motion for trying to toss the water out of the bucket, because it seemed like everyone was having to do these really sort of jerky, not optimal things, because it seems like what would really be best is sort of a smooth underhand, like circular motion, and then stopping it short at like just above the waist, whereas everyone else was almost having to do it like overhand and then like jerky.
Right.
And everyone was doing that, even though kind of like to my eye it looked inefficient. So I wonder if it was because they were trying to run up to where that like waist high post was. And so in order to do that underhand sweeping gesture, they would have to be too far back. And it was just kind of forcing everyone to do it awkwardly. And I wonder if that was deliberate.
I don't know. I didn't think enough about it. So I don't really have any comment on it, because I didn't even notice that really. I picture it in my head now that you've said it, but I wasn't thinking about it until you said it. So
yeah. It's not a big deal either way. It was more just a matter of I was kind of watching them do it and feeling like, oh, I see a couple of people that don't look like they're doing a very smooth, like, motion, and it's kind of the water's going everywhere as a result, instead of kind of staying all in a bolus of
right.
Of water. But then I was realizing, oh wait, everyone's doing that, and then they had this waist level post that they couldn't sweep through. So anyway, that's just an idle challenge design question.
Idle.
Yeah, there you go. Pun not intended, but found by Eagle Eye Mike, or Eagle Ear, I suppose.
Yeah.
Eagle Ear is probably not a thing. Is there an equivalent?
Not that I could think of.
Yeah, eagles are not known for their ears. In any case, um, we get, let's see,
Ears of a bat
ears of a
is what
bat. There you go.
that's
Okay.
what Reddit suggests.
Hmm. Yeah. Doesn't roll off the tongue exactly, does it?
Yeah.
Anyway, we
Ears of
got.
a fox? I'm not gonna just read a Reddit thread. Yeah, close that. Yeah.
Anyway, so we have Ron winning, and I wrote that it was a slow motion win just because there was this bit where everyone, like Ron and his husband, I don't remember the husband's name, but
Lloyd.
oh yeah, okay, so didn't seem to like realize that this was going to be the one to do it. But like he poured and was starting to like look away, and the bucket was just very slowly going. But he wins. Good for him. Um, the only note I have from people saying goodbye to each other is Gavin's wife saying, "You don't even really smell bad," and he says, "Thanks for the compliment." So I guess actually Gavin wasn't saying goodbye at that point because Ron picked him and Julie to accompany him, saying they need a proper honeymoon. And then, of course, Ron explains later that although to some extent it's nice to be able to give Gavin time with his wife, that it was primarily a strategic consideration. Um, everyone's kind of making happy talk. We have them at the reward eating fried chicken. And again, like Ron was sort of just bubbly in a way that he kind of really wasn't any other time so far.
Yeah.
He's saying he's going to get fat when he gets home because he's going to want to eat everything.
Yeah. And his strategy almost worked. I mean, we saw
Mm-hmm.
a confessional later with Gavin where he was torn between,
Yeah.
Going forward with the plan that he, did think was right, but
Yeah.
also was like, well, but I kind of don't want to vote for Ron because Ron let me spend time with my loved ones. So
Mm-hmm.
it was close, but I mean,
Yeah. I mean, even though he didn't ultimately make that decision,
it gave him pause.
it
Yeah.
sure did. It sure did. So we have, with Gavin and Julie, Ron, they kind of discuss that they're planning to target Rick, which is, everyone's kind of predicting that at this point.
Yep.
But Rick goes out idol searching, and the others are discussing it, and Aurora decides to go through his bag, but gets busted. And it's one of those things where it's like people going through each other's bag, like that's not new on Survivor. It's really one of those situations, kind of like how it played out here, where it's not against the rules.
Yeah, they've made very clear that
Yeah.
it is not. Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where it's kind of like picking your nose in the sense that like everyone knows that like noses need picking sometimes, but the expectation is that you don't do it where other people can see you. And so like this is like people are going to go through each other's bags maybe, but don't get caught because then if you do, it makes everybody feel awkward. Or if you believe Aurora, it doesn't make her feel awkward.
Yeah.
Although,
which was actually the title of the episode.
Yeah.
Was awkward.
Because she insisted that she wasn't feeling awkward, but it did strike me a little bit as like my lady doth protest too much sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not awkward, you're awkward. I'm fine, I'm just sitting here not being awkward at all. I'm going to go over there now.
Dog's being awkward right now. Like,
Aww.
he's demanding attention. So he's just standing like right underneath me.
Mm.
Oh, play with your toy or something.
That's awkward.
Awkward. You're awkward. Pulling your ear.
So in any event, he does find a clue, and it's one of those my favorite kinds of hidden immunity idols where it's hidden at the camp, and they have to figure out how to get it at the camp. And it's
Yeah.
not even an easy place to reach. It's like up in a tree.
Yeah, he has to climb the tree, and he does it while they're all asleep. It's amazing.
Yeah, that was such a great sequence because, like, we saw a couple of clips of people sort of coming awake, like they're hearing something. Now, that might have been edited together. Like, who knows if it actually happened while he was climbing the tree. But in any event, it would seem that nobody was aware when it happened, or they didn't figure it out or catch him doing it or anything.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, and so he got was thrilled to be able to say they searched my bag too soon.
That was really funny.
Yeah. Well, and then now he says, as he tells Ron, I think it's like now I'm not leaving my bag anywhere. I'm gonna take it with me
Yep.
all the time.
Yep.
Yeah. So the immunity challenge was, one they've done many times before, though. But the endurance on the tiny little footholds, and this is definitely, as we frequently talk sometimes about which challenges would be fun and which would not. This is definitely one of the ones would not be fun, like at all, like nothing fun about it. Just everyone looks like they're in pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so miserable looking.
Devons continues to be the official class clown, though, leaning over to the whole group and saying, "Hey, everybody, let me have this, and I promise you, final 3." And they're like, "Well, there's too many of us for that." And he's like, "Well, I don't know, can't do math."
Yeah, that was really
like,
funny.
Well, like them correcting him, like obviously that's not right, and him kind of going, "Gosh, you got me. Couldn't have figured that out myself." Not like that was the joke or anything, but anyway. But he goes out almost immediately. Starts trash talking Aurora, but she's kind of over it. She's not especially flustered by that. Ultimately, though, we have a nice moment where Julie goes out and she's having trouble walking, so Ron carries her over to the bench. That's kind of nice. But Lauren and Gavin are the final 2, but ultimately Gavin wins for his second individual immunity win.
Yep.
Good for him.
Don't sleep on Gavin. I told you that last week.
Yep. And, I wonder, too...
No one sees him as a threat. He's... Yeah, he's the guy that they give the extra vote to because he's the most trustworthy. Like,
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And not only that, but I think having that immunity probably played an even further role in giving him the confidence to sort of like make the move, the more interesting choice this time.
Yep.
Right? But in any event, we have, after the challenge, Ron is confident that Rick will be voted out, especially because, he has the fake. But,
right, and so he's thinking he's thinking the other way, like that he's probably not looking for idols because he feels confident he has one.
Right.
Whereas what we saw was that, Rick was questioning what was going on with this, so he went and really found one.
Yeah. And I was kind of thinking through it just in my notes at this point of just saying that, like, since he has the real one, just kind of reminding myself the sequence of events would certainly allow him to use both. It's not like if he chose to use the fake that somehow he wouldn't then be able to use the real one, because of course the sequence we saw was exactly what was going to happen, which was would attempt to use it, Probst would say it was a fake, and then he would say, "Okay, well, but
right,
yeah, here's the real one."
Yeah, I mean, it put him in a great position because had that actually worked, he would have had another idol that nobody knew about.
Right.
So, he really handled this really well, and that's why I say, like, he's such a huge threat, and he's going to be such a target. But like I said, starting with that, like he knows he's really a good player, and he knows what he needs to do to win the game. It's just whether or not it's just tactically can he execute at this point.
Right. I
You
think
know?
honestly his biggest competition at this point is going to be whoever comes back from Edge of Extinction.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like there's some other good players there still for sure, but but Rick is the guy to beat right now, I think, and
right.
but certainly everybody's going to be trying. So, uh,
Well, that's why, like I say, like don't discount Gavin
mhm,
because if if Rick gets voted out and whoever comes back from Edge of Extinction, whether they get to be at the end or if they get voted right out, like Gavin's going to be around, you
mhm,
know, and because I think people are underestimating that they can beat him because he he handled like that, like even last episode when he kind of went to them and he was like, "Oh, I'll just do whatever you guys want because I'm mad at not being part of the vote." Like, and he didn't like he was playing that.
mhm,
He really did want to get War Dog out, and he whipped the votes, but no one really realized he did it.
mhm.
And so I think that I think Rick's the guy to beat because he's a really strong player, but he's the guy everybody's targeting,
Yeah,
which like I said, just leaves. I mean, think about who else is there. Like, who else is really? I mean, Gavin sits at the end with if none of the big players are there, the guys who people are just going to say, you know what, this is a person who should win.
right.
Then Gavin's going to get votes.
Yeah, I
You
think
know,
so. Yeah.
people like him. He played a good game. He played a game with integrity. He turned on people when he needed to, but didn't do it in a bad way. Like, Ron's not going to hold this against him.
Mhm.
Ron's going to respect him, for 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 doing it because ultimately Rick would have gone home, but he had the idol, and these guys had a backup plan, and it just happened to be Ron.
Yeah.
You know, which Rick kept telling everybody, if you guys once you get War Dog, like it's going to be then me and Ron are going to be the next two. Like he told the three of them, and they decided to vote for War Dog, and look what happened. The
Yeah.
only next two choices were him and Ron.
Mhm.
You know? So Rick gets it.
Oh yeah,
So,
totally. Um, so let's see. We have everyone coming back to camp after the immunity challenge, and it's not remotely subtle that nobody even wants to talk to Rick. He's just sitting there like, anyone, no, all right then.
yeah,
uh, so he does eventually connect with Ron and they bring in Julie. So, like, the decoy plan from Ron and Julie is that they're planning to vote for Aurora. But Aurora is only kind of a half decoy because they are considering the possibility that if Rick does play an idol, they want Aurora to be the one to go instead.
right.
Um, and so we have, in the meantime, Victoria and Lauren who want to have it be like a formal vote splitting thing and not just have it be unanimous except for whoever Rick votes for because that gives him the control. It's one thing if he thinks Aurora is the target, but they don't want to take that chance. So they want it to be an explicitly like split vote, but they need more people to do that, or they would like more people anyway. So they talk about thinking that they could get Gavin in on that plan, but they mention it to Aurora as well, and then she tells them about her extra vote. And it's actually a very smart idea, I think, that she recognizes she's possibly a target, and if in this split vote it ends up being a tie, I won't be able to use that extra vote. So if we trust Gavin, let's give it to him. And I thought that was an interesting idea of trying to make sure that it didn't get taken off the table.
It was, but it was odd that Gavin still used it in the first vote, though.
Did
When
he?
I
So I guess I didn't look at the final results. We saw him take it out, but I don't know if he
he
voted
did
with
use
it.
it.
He
Yep,
did? Oh, okay.
he did use it. So there ended up being 3 votes for Ron,
Hmm.
2 were Gavin's, 1 was Lauren's. Um,
Well, maybe what it was is that Gavin just made the call that with access to the extra vote, he decided he wanted to just make sure it was going to be Ron to go.
Right. Because we hadn't seen the immunity idol yet, right?
Well, no, I
When,
mean,
when he voted, he did not know Rick was immune, obviously.
correct. Yeah, everyone had voted, but the votes had not been read.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It just seemed odd because they still, okay, so just so you know, they put the majority of votes on Rick still. So Ron and Julie obviously voted for Rick. So did Victoria and Aurora.
Yeah, you're looking at the table?
Yeah, yeah. So Aurora, Victoria, Ron, and Julie all voted Rick. So even though Aurora and Victoria were talking about splitting the votes,
Mm-hmm.
they did in fact want to split the votes. Like they still put the votes on Rick.
Right.
And then so Gavin didn't need to use it if everybody was doing what they were supposed to, because Lauren and Gavin could have voted Ron. That would have been 2, and then Devins had 1 vote, and he voted
Mm-hmm.
Aurora. So it seemed odd that Gavin chose to use it just to make it 3 votes for Ron, even though there were 4 on Rick and 1 on Aurora. Like, we don't know his mindset, like what he was playing, like
I think it will require a little bit of massaging at the end afterwards, but I think it makes perfect sense because it's not his extra vote really, right? It's Aurora's nominally, and so if he doesn't use it, there would be an expectation that he gives it back to her, right? And so
I thought it was the last tribal it could be used. For some reason, I thought so. I thought it had like an expiration on it, and it had to be at like a certain amount of people. I might be wrong. But
you might be right, but I don't remember that.
I wrote down Aurora gives it to him because tonight is the last night she can use it.
Okay.
So I did take that as a note for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, the Wikipedia summary does confirm that. Well, so in that sense, then, if you have to use it anyway, why bother waiting to see if it's a tie? Just make it not be a tie.
Yeah, true. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it just seemed more curious because they made such a big deal about maintaining it through the tiebreaker, and then he just used it on the first vote. Mm-hmm. So, yes, I'm sure there was like you said, perfectly good reason. Like, okay, let's just not go to a tiebreaker. Let's make sure that it's Ron if Rick uses the idol. You know?
Yeah.
So
in any event, that's skipping ahead a little bit still, so we had her. I think it was smart of her to recognize that as much as it feels like giving away something that she wants, she doesn't want to be in the position of, risking that it wouldn't be used.
Right.
But that's still when they're, the plan had not reached its final evolution yet. Because Lauren approaches Gavin with the plan, but this is where we have Gavin being a little bit conflicted in terms of he doesn't want to. He's kind of been put into the swing vote position involuntarily, like this wasn't really what he wanted. But he realizes that he's going to damage relationships on either side, which is true.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the game.
Yeah. But in any event, really though,
Ron will respect what he did.
Right. Well, and the truth is too that in terms of who you're going to make mad and who you're going to make happy, if he had not done this, like if he had not sided the way he did, I mean, he had no way to know that Rick had the idol, but let's say the idol wasn't in play and he sided with Ron and Rick went out. He's got Ron and Julie on his side and Victoria and Lauren mad. But, Ron is probably a bigger threat there.
Yeah, and that's how you can explain it. Like, let's also play it the other way. Is that
mm-hmm.
Okay? So with your scenario, Rick goes out,
mm-hmm.
and now he has to go back and explain to Ron how Ron got 3 votes.
Yeah, like you knew about the plan and you didn't tell me, or.
And I mean, I think Gavin can, but I think that's the thing is Gavin looks at it, and I think he could stand up to Ron and say, "Ron, you and Rick were the biggest threats. We didn't know if Rick had an idol. we split the votes on you because you're the next biggest threat. And yeah, I mean, I'm still open to working with you, but in the way this came down, like I had to do it. And I think Ron would still have respected that.
Mm-hmm.
And, he might not have included Gavin, but he didn't, there's things, I think that Gavin did the right thing either way. So I think Gavin did the right thing either way.
Mm-hmm.
Had Devins gone out, he could have explained it to Ron. With Ron going out, he can defend that as a good, strong move on his part to get rid of a threat. And he was proven right. Like, they were proven right.
Mm-hmm.
Devins had an idol.
Yep.
Yep. So what do they get for getting Aurora out at this point? Like she's kind of like this weird, like, red herring at this point. Like, who cares? Why target? Who cares if she goes? Like,
it was weird because she was seen as this big threat early on, but then she kind of hasn't. She's faded a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think she can win. Like, her argument, if she sits in the final 3, is going to be, y'all targeted me for 10 votes, and I'm still here. And that's a great argument, but I don't think it's enough. Like, I think people genuinely don't have a relationship with her. I think that people don't like her, I guess is a way to put it. Like, I just don't think
no one seems really close with her, that's for sure.
Right, like, no one's going to want to vote for her to win if you have somebody like a Devins or a Gavin or, let's say an Aussie, comes back, like somebody from,
Joe, you mean?
Joe, sorry, yeah.
No, it's that's how I figured out. Yeah.
Joe, yeah, or Joe comes back. It's like, what are you going to do? Like, she can't beat any of these people, so why is she even a target at this point? And
yeah, I mean, I think the only reason she was target is because she is an outsider in these loose alliances.
Yep.
Because she's not especially close with anyone who's left.
Yeah. So I mean, I predict right now that she makes the final 3.
I think so too. Yeah.
I just don't see. There's just too many other people you need to get rid of at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll depend how it all goes down. But I have a good feeling that Gavin ends up sitting there. I think that people are. I joke, don't sleep on him. I think the other players might sleep on him. And maybe somebody figures it out, like, especially if Devins is near, like, Devins is going to figure that out. He's going to be like, wait, this kid everybody likes him. He's played a good game. He's won some immunities. He's made some moves. Mm-hmm. He's kind of navigated this game really well.
He's got a really nice aw shucks sort of personality.
Yeah, he's very disarming.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we don't want him around, but barring that, like, I see him making it.
Yeah.
And I, again, unless he's against a power player, he could win.
Well, so Rick, obviously, the challenge he's got set for him right now is that everybody's gunning for him. And so it's going to be hard for him to get to the end at this point, just because everybody's after him. But if he does, then, he can do anything at this point and attribute it all to, hey, man, I'm a scrapper. I was in the mix and had to do what I had to do.
Yeah. If Devins makes it to the end, Devins wins.
I think so.
I don't see a scenario where he sits in that final 3, and with the way that he speaks to people, like, he's going to be great in that final tribal council. Like, he's going to be great with the jury. Like, even the thing we already talked about, like, him kind of, like, calling Ron and Julie out. Like, people respected that, and then the way that he handled it and, like, came and was like, yeah, I mean, I get why you guys did it, but you know what, I'm going to do this now. And, like, it just was so smooth, and he's going to handle himself really well. He's a great player. He's a scrapper, like you said. Mm-hmm. I see in the Wikipedia the next episode is titled Idol or Bust, and that's got to be him.
Well, yeah, I mean, it has to be, because, he's used this last one. He knows everyone's going to try to get him out, and so is really finding another idol is literally all he can hope for.
Yeah. And then, honestly, like, if he makes it to the finale, I don't necessarily know he needs to win out. Like, things start to get tricky when you start getting down to, like, once you carve it down enough, like, all of a sudden it's like, people might see somebody else they don't want there and see Rick as an opportunity to get something else to happen. And, like, all of a sudden, like, he's not the big target anymore. Not to say that would happen, but it's possible.
Well, once you start getting that to that point, you have to start thinking about like whose narrative can you try to compete against.
Yep, and
And if you
somebody's going to
have
come back.
yeah,
You
if you
know,
have someone like Lauren and Victoria, their problem would be that if they're looking at each other, they've got to be saying what's different enough about us that we wouldn't just split any votes going to either of us.
yep. And so then you maybe have a Victoria who goes to Rick and says like, "Hey, I know you're a target, but like, hey, if we work together and we grab Gavin, then or we get Aurora, who everybody's always talking about, and
Yeah.
and can't beat anybody. Like, we can make this happen." And all of a sudden, like Rick's back in it, and somebody's going to come back from Extinction who's going to be a threat. Like
That's true
everybody in
too. Yeah.
Extinction is already been deemed a threat. That's why they're there.
That is actually, I'm glad you brought that up because that is really such a wild card at this point because it really is this case of you can't just look at who's in the game right now and say who's the final three in this group because you don't know who's coming back.
Yep, and you don't know when they're coming back and like how is that going to be navigated?
Right.
How many immunities are they going to be there for? Like how many times are they going to have to stay in?
Right.
We don't know any of that. Like that's all.
Right, because it might be everyone thinks Rick's the big target now, but you get someone like Joe come back.
I mean, any of those guys. I mean, Ron comes back. He's back. He's a target again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Aubrey comes back. She's a target again.
Yeah.
Chris, target again. Like they're strong players over there.
Yeah.
I think the only one who probably nobody would be worried about is Reem. Unfortunately for her, I mean, I just don't think she was the first person out. Like nobody had.
She's been out of the game for so long that like she has no real relationship with the people left in there.
Right. Like if she comes back in, like what? Okay, cool. Like you make it the final. Like what your argument is going to be? I lived in Extinction the whole time and made it back, and I'm here.
Well, and that's a significant narrative. The weird thing is, the very weird scenario there is that she would be in a position of having much more of a relationship with the people on the jury than the people that she's in the final with.
Right, and she hasn't done a great job managing those relationships.
Yeah, that's true. She has not been spending her time on Edge of Extinction as though she expects to get back in the game.
Yeah, it's been kind of odd.
Well, I don't know. I think that's fair. I think it's probably somewhat realistic of her to say, I want to see this through to the end, but I'm not going to pretend that it's likely that I'm going to win a challenge against these people.
Right, and even if I do, like, I still then I have to go back to a bunch of people who I don't know and figure out how to, like, stick around. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he is kind of a realist, so you're right. Yeah.
So that said, I think for her to just be in a position of like, even if she thinks it's extremely unlikely that she would succeed in getting back into the game, she wants to see it through to the end. Good for her.
Yeah, I do respect her for that.
Yeah. So where were we? We had Gavin we were pretty much right up to the tribal council.
Mm-hmm.
So at tribal council, we have Devon's, just right up front with Aurora going through the bag. And it's one of those things where I think he maybe overplayed that a little bit because everyone's reaction is a little bit like, do you remember in the movie Dirty Rotten Scoundrels? This is an old reference for people who, are younger than us, but
great movie, by the way.
It is, absolutely. There's a bit where we meet Steve Martin's character in the French prison, and he's complaining. It's like he's basically there because someone was mad at him because he slept with their wife, and is like, come on, I didn't know she was married. Like, you understand that, don't you? You're French. And the guy goes, to have a mistress, that is French. To get caught, that is American. And, so the point just being no one thinks that going through someone's bag is actually a big deal. The only thing that makes this interesting at all is that she got busted doing it.
Yep.
So you don't want to hang your hat on that point. Like, let's demonize Aurora because she did something that everybody has at least thought about doing.
Right.
Um, it's pretty obvious to like no one's really being making it a secret that Devins is the target. He's pointing out that it's like, okay, well, if all of you are still targeting me, that means at least half of you are wrong about who's going to end up at the end. Um, but let's see. That's literally all the notes I had about tribal council. Did you have anything else before the votes? I feel like it was a
No,
pretty short one this week.
actually what we saw at tribal was really short. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because we had a lot of time where we had to kind of see. There was a lot with the advantage menu being
Mm-hmm.
expired, him berating Ron and Julie,
Right,
playing
but
Idol. Yeah,
everything before the votes, though, I think it probably they just didn't have
I
much
know.
to say because everyone knew what the plan was, except that that's kind of
Well, and
not
whatever
true.
they did say, I don't think it added any entertainment
Yeah.
value to the
Mm-hmm.
episode. The
Right.
value, the entertainment value was Devins's performance after the votes.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
So in any event, though, we see the votes happen. We see Lauren voting for Ron. We see Gavin pull out the extra vote, but don't see who he votes for at that time. Um, and then we have the whole production where Davins tries the fake. It's shown fake, and he kind of expresses some skepticism even as he sort of pulling it out. And then sure enough, when it's shown to be fake, he goes on about how you know like what was this all about? Like you all had control and the ability to send me home no matter what anyway, so you wanted to try to make me look stupid on my way out. Like what was that all about? Like what was your actual motivation here? And just essentially pointing out that it was kind of like not even really necessary from a strategic point of view. Although I think to some extent we can recognize that's not entirely true. If
yeah,
you
like you said earlier, there was some complexity to it.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I think Ron initially did it not to embarrass him.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ron did it to buy some credibility with him, so that in case he wanted to work with him later,
Yeah.
he had that, because he didn't know that he was going to be the target at that point.
He did it before the immunity challenge.
He did it at the beginning of the episode
Yeah.
because of what had happened the last episode. Ron
Right.
was using it to buy some credibility. Then after the immunity challenge, when him and Julie doubled down on it, again, their motivation wasn't to embarrass him.
Right.
It was to make him feel confident that he was going to be safe, so that he would not go stir up anything.
Right, exactly. That's why the focus is always on these ideas of the blind side every time, even when it's a foregone conclusion. You always want to, you don't tell someone, yes, it's you. We're all going to let you try to enjoy your last day here because it's a foregone conclusion. You don't do that because you don't want someone to mess up the plan by doing something crazy. What you want is for them to think everything's under control and be wrong about that. And so it's strategically there's that. And it's also, as you were just saying, just the idea that he didn't know. For all he knew, Rick was going to win immunity again. And he would want to be working with Rick on whoever else it was going to be.
Yep.
And so
Yeah.
so the fact of like the idea that there's no good reason to do this, it's only mean and that's all there is to it, is really, I think, an unfair characterization of it. But I think
But I
Rick
like that he did it.
and he knows all of that.
Yeah.
I don't think that he sincerely believed, it wasn't like sincere hurt feelings about that, because here's the thing is that whether he knew it directly or whether it was intuition or he's just playing the odds, recall that when Ron and Julie had that conversation about, oh, the target's Aurora with Rick, we saw Julie afterwards express to Ron, oh, I feel terrible.
Hmm?
So what this is now that Ron's gone, What do you want to bet? Julie's going to come to Rick and say, I'm so sorry. I didn't feel good about that when we did it. How can I make it up to you?
Yep. And now all of a sudden Rick's got an ally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, and then you've got, Aurora's going to be just a wild card because she's been this target and she's always going to be the decoy for anything anybody's trying to do. Yeah. And she's going to get sick of that. And all of a sudden now, like, that's why I said, like, I think this next one, like, Rick's got to have an idol. Like, he's got to be immune or he's got to find an idol.
Yeah, I think so.
But I think he makes it one more vote, and then things change for him. I don't think he becomes the automatic person.
Right.
As you go into the finale. Because again, you're gonna have somebody come back. You're gonna have Julie, and you're gonna have Aurora, and you're gonna have Victoria versus Lauren, and you're going to have, like, there's these things that are going to start to churn up that he's a good enough player. He's going to find how to make himself an asset for somebody else.
Yeah.
But that's not going to happen next time because people are gunning for him because he is literally, if you look at the people who are left on the beach with Ron and War Dog gone, he called it.
Yeah.
They were the top 3 threats at the time. Once one of them went, the others are the targets.
Well, and frankly, that is what the others should do.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because we just talked about, like, we just agreed. If he sits at the end, he wins.
Yeah.
Barring something, some crazy thing from Joe where everybody just loves it and he can't talk his way out of it, something like that. But
see, the thing is, although it means that he has to make his way through this gauntlet now, having been voted out once and coming back when he did, is really a narrative advantage over someone who comes back near the end.
Yep.
So, which is not to say that it's a strong player, but, like, if someone comes back right at the end, how do they reintegrate at that point? Would be really hard.
Right. Like, that's why I said it's going to be difficult. Like let's say Joe comes back, who's a fan favorite, a jury favorite. He comes back, wins one immunity, and goes to the finals. It's going to be hard to vote for him. It's like you didn't play half the game. Like, you just you came back, you won once, and cool. Where Rick's like, hey, man, I did what you did 6 votes ago, and I'm still here.
Yeah.
And that's going to be hard to beat. He's got a great narrative.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been a huge target. He's been voted. I mean, he's technically been voted out twice. He just had an eye on one of them.
And he's very good at explaining those narratives too.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, he's very good at it. He balances the directness with the humor and the self-deprecation and the awareness. Like, he really reads the audience well. He's a very, very good player. Yeah. And I was really excited because I think, you and I talked about this last time, and I really brought up, I was like, after watching him last episode, like, he became my favorite. And I knew he was going to be a target, and that's why I said, like, he's not my actual favorite to win because they're going to come gunning for him. But then watching him handle himself in this one and survive, like, I even like him even more. Like, I think he's a great player. I think he's fun to watch. I think he's good TV. In the good way,
Yeah,
and
absolutely. I agree.
I like rooting for him, I feel like I feel like I'm rooting for the good guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Well, because even though he's playing so well and he is in trouble now because he's literally the one everyone is trying to shoot for, he still feels like an underdog.
Yeah.
Which it's normally the player who would be in this position at this point in the game doesn't feel like an underdog. They feel like the front runner.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
But he's done such a good job. Again, there's the self-deprecating humor, the jokes about being, like, the news guy with the dad bod, and, like, oh, but I'm just somehow managing to win these challenges, even though I'm out of shape. Like, he's painted this persona that makes him feel like he shouldn't be doing the things he's doing, which makes it, when they happen, it makes it seem like he's risen above something.
Yeah, like he wins these challenges and then has this demeanor of, wow, I'm as surprised as you guys.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's really good. And so I'm so he's when I say he's my favorite, I don't mean he's like who I think is my favorite to win.
Mm.
He is who I'm rooting for right now.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. He's got a tough couple of tribal councils ahead of him for sure.
Yep.
But he's definitely a great player, so I think it's possible that he'll manage, but it's certainly going to be. He's got his work cut out for him.
Yep. And I would say I think Gavin has actually got a good chance to actually come out and win this game.
Mm-hmm.
But I also am rooting for Gavin's kind of my second place guy that I'm rooting for.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm leaving my third spot open to see what happens with the person who comes back from Extinction.
Yeah.
Who that is, one, and how they handle themselves, two. Because just because if it's somebody I like, I don't necessarily know that I'm going to root for them unless they do the right things
Mm-hmm.
to kind of put themselves in the right position based on however that scenario plays out.
Yeah.
Uh,
I feel like Lauren could potentially do something interesting if she gets towards the end.
yeah, I'm not opposed to her or Victoria. I think
Yeah.
both of them. I like both of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Victoria's really smart, but she has not really been able to step into the spotlight yet.
She's going to have a real tough time, no matter like just looking at the people that she's sitting with. Like even if
Mm-hmm.
she's like, let's say maybe her best case scenario right now is sitting with like Lauren and Aurora.
Mm-hmm. Julie, maybe.
Oh yeah, like Julie and Aurora. That's
Mm-hmm.
probably Victoria's best.
Yeah.
And I just don't. I just think that Julie and Aurora just tell better stories. Like they're going to connect even though they're not.
Yeah, because Julie could potentially make her
And I just
whole.
don't see a scenario where that happens either. Where how does Victoria, Julie, and Aurora end up in the final three? Like that's just not a thing that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So Victoria's in a lot of trouble because she just, like you said, she's smart, she gets it, she's playing well. She just hasn't found that thing that ticks her over into
Right.
like a winner.
She's
You know?
not distinguishing herself from the people that she's playing with. She's not emerging from the pack.
Right.
And I mean, I think that she's capable of it, but hasn't yet. So she's going to need to get on that, and there's not much time left. But yeah, I think Aurora has a hard time winning at this point. She just
Yeah, she
doesn't
has no
seem to,
connection. Yeah.
yeah, have that connection with people to, to be able to tell that story. Julie seems like a nice person who's really barely engaging with the strategic part of the game at this point. She's kind of just following Ron around as an ally, which is not like, I mean, a lot of people would be in that spot. Like it's, the skills
She's
of
got a
being a
couple
great
of
Survivor player are not universal.
Yeah, she's got a couple of votes to like make a
Mhm.
case, but
Yeah. Yeah,
I just don't see her stepping in and doing it.
right.
And so I think you're right. Like her legacy is going to be painted as I'm the person who just kind of followed Ron around and he didn't always tell me what was going on. And I sort of one time thought about how we could get War Dog instead of what he wanted to do,
Mhm.
but he ended up agreeing with that ultimately anyway. Like it's she doesn't really have a story. And Aurora, like I
Right.
said, no connections. Lauren, I think, can make something happen. Victoria, we talked about her tough road.
Mhm.
Gavin, we've already talked about where his story lies. And Devon's we talked about. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, other than like whoever comes back, we just don't know.
Yeah, that's the wild card that's still remaining.
Yeah. So once again, a great season.
So here's
I'm
a
enjoying
question.
myself. Yeah.
Well,
Sorry.
yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying yourself. I am too. But where I was going was the idea of, I think we're in agreement that probably one more person gets to come back.
Yes.
Do they want to do that next time so that they go into the finale with the actual final people? Or do they want to save that moment for the finale? So when we go into the finale, because usually with the finale, they make a big deal about here's the people remaining, right? But if we don't return someone next time, there's a big question mark there. But that could be a selling point.
My bet, if I had to put money on this, is that they open the finale with the comeback.
Hmm.
And that's the selling point of the finale is you know who's in, there's one more coming. Tune in to see who it is,
Yeah.
and then who survives. You know,
I think you're
I
right. That makes sense to me. Plus,
yeah
it also makes sense that in terms of the number of people remaining going into a finale, like if you're going to have, you don't want to have someone come back in right before going from 4 to 3, right?
yeah. We're at 6 right now, right?
Well, so yeah, math is hard. So
Aurora, Gavin, Julie, Lauren, Rick, Victoria.
yeah,
That's everybody. 6. Yep.
right.
So
So
we're gonna lose somebody next week. So we would go into the finale with 5.
and then if someone comes back at 6, which
It's
is
6. That's a lot to eliminate in 2 hours.
although that I feel like we usually start the 2 hour finale with 6.
Okay, then that would be right. So yeah, I'm sticking with my. We open the finale with the comeback. That is the what we walk into the bang. Like you're in the finale.
Yeah.
We go straight, no discussion, just straight to
Well,
hey, here's the Extinction people coming back. You know.
well, what they may actually do is have the challenge of who's coming back in. Do you? I don't know if that would be super fair, but it doesn't really have to be. What if the person who wins that challenge just has to roll right into the next immunity challenge?
That would be awesome. I would love to watch that.
Yeah, that's really tough on whoever has to do it, but
But
at the
that's the
same
whole
time,
point.
like,
It's supposed to be tough on
yeah,
them. Yeah.
exactly.
You were already voted out once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess we'll see. Next time, the preview indicates exactly what that episode title suggests: is that Rick is still a target. He's going to have to do some idol searching. Um,
But not
Ron,
idly this time.
yeah. Uh, Ron talks about how he feels like he took his eye off the prize. He's not quite sure what happened, but he seems like he's not bitter about it. Just kind of like frustrated perhaps, but not like angry. So I
Yeah.
don't, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think he what his point was, I think, was like I was so confident that we had basically like tricked Devins into thinking that he had an idol that I didn't have to worry about what if he actually had an idol,
yeah,
and other people worried about that. Which like that's where he took his eye off the prize is that he didn't think about the fact that only he and Julie knew that they had tried to appease Rick.
yeah,
The rest of the people on the tribe didn't know that and were worried Rick had an idol.
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
So yeah, I think that's where he kind of lost his focus, and and you see it. I mean, that's part of the deal. Like you got to be on all the time, and he got a little too confident and didn't pay attention to how he didn't run the worst case scenarios.
Well, I think what ultimately we can really look at too is that it was too big a move. I mean, he had the little menu thing, so he felt like that's what he had to work with. But just the idea that unprompted, it's like I know I betrayed you for the last 2 tribal councils, but here's a free idol. It's too big.
It's too big.
It's too
And
big.
and Rick rightfully saw it that way because Rick's
Mhm.
smart. So yeah.
Yeah. So in the very last bit from the episode, what we got is Reem with her very first non-lecture welcome of saying, "Yeah, it's a game. Everybody's a liar," which is kind of funny just for that to be her reaction when Ron shows up, and I have to imagine everyone else turning to her just like, "Wait, what?" But maybe this is Reem's evolving perspective. Like she's come to be more at peace with it.
Maybe. So all
So
right.
we'll see. So I think we'll leave it there. So thank you everybody for watching and or listening, and we'll be back for next week's episode. So try to survive until then. Good night, everybody.
Good night.